that came to my mind was the potential of video conferencing and the power that I think it can bring to your classrooms. I've asked you all to join in a Google Meet. We are now being recorded, so anything you do will be will be committed to record. And hopefully within this, and depending on how many people we have, I'll see how we go for time. We can open it up for some conversation at the end, just to see who I'm talking to get to know some of you perhaps, and just to perhaps talk more widely on distance learning and using Google Meet as a potential solution for that. Right, we've got 17 people who've joined, and that, to be fair, is 17 people more than I thought I'd have. So at least I'm not here by myself. So thank you for giving up some time this afternoon, and I hope this is useful. And yeah, let's see. So the first thing that we need to look at is how to go about creating a Google Meet. I assume that most of you have a Google account or a Google School account or something along those lines. And if you do, it is really straightforward to create a Google Meet. Let me share my screen with you, and I'll tell you how I'm doing all of this in a minute. But I'll share my screen with you, and you should now see, in a second or so, you'll see my screen. There we go. With perhaps some of you down the side. But what I'm going to do is visit the website meet.google.com, and it comes up with this very straightforward interface. Here you can see there's the webinar. It's happening now. That's something that's on my calendar. We'll talk about that in a second. But all you need to do is click on Start or Join and continue, and it then will create a meeting for you. This is going to be curious because I now have 2 meetings going simultaneously. That's obviously not normal, but something really, to get to this point, really no technical knowledge has been required. If you have a look at the title bar, you'll see the URL, the address at the top has a code. In this particular case, it's IWW and so on. And all you would do is copy that link and paste it in your Google Classroom or send it via email to your pupils. And then at the agreed time, just as you all did, all they need to do is click on that link, and as you were, they get transported into this meeting, and they see you face to face. So getting started is very straightforward. The other way that we can do it, and to set up the meeting, if you're familiar with Google Calendar, is to create a new event in your calendar. And you can call it lesson or whatever you like. And we have some options here that Google provides us in the calendar. The first is to be able to add guests. Now, when we do this, and when you add a guest, Google Calendar will send out an invitation to all of the people that you invite. So if you've got a list of email addresses for your class, you can add them all in there, and they will all get an invite. They'll get a reminder in their Google Calendars as well, and pops up, and all they need to do is join the meeting. Just underneath that, you'll see it asks me for rooms, location, or conferencing. And if I click on that, I can add conferencing. And there it is. There's my Hangout Meet link. It's created a code for me. And all that the recipients of this invitation will need to do is just to click on the link, and they're transported into the meeting. I'm going to discard that because we already have that. We already are working on this. Okay. So the Google Meet itself is a fairly straightforward interface. You've got people in front of you. I've clicked on the presenting button, so you've got my screen, which means you potentially have 2 rows of people, one along the side and one next to them. That's fine. That's just because you're looking at my screen here. Maybe let's, let me do this. I'm changing my layout to Spotlight, just so that you don't get confused with all of the pictures that are pictures of people that are going on around. So you would see my screen where I've got this, you're presenting to everyone. And ironically, you now see you're presenting to everyone, even though you're not. Okay. There are a couple of things that we can have a look at around the side. The first is at the top right-hand corner, there's a people icon and a people tab. And if you click on that, you'll see a list of all of the people that have joined the meeting. And all of their names are there. And if I click on anyone, and I'm sorry, I'm going first, so Annalisa, you're top of my list. If I click on your name, on my screen, I now see Annalisa, and for those of you who are looking at that, you now see her as well. I can go back and click on mine, and now we have this lovely cascade into the distance. Let me stop sharing there. Otherwise, we'll end up going on forever. So it is possible to see the people. As you came in, there were one or two of you that hadn't muted your microphone, and the only reason I wanted you to mute your microphone is just to try and save in a bit of noise. Later on, I will open it up for a discussion. I think it's important that you see how well this discussion element works. But we can, if you click on the little drop-down arrow next to any of these people, you can either pin them to the top. So here I've pinned Hanneke Bosson's, it's her icon to the top there, or I can click on the mute button and that will mute their microphone. So if someone is talking in your class, you can just mute them. And I know that's a feature that is lacking in most real-world classrooms, and that's one of the things I love about this. The other thing that you can do, don't worry, Hanneke, I'm not going to do it, is you can remove a person from the chat as well. So if someone's joined and you don't want them to be part of the session, you can simply kick them out and they will no longer be part of it. It is possible to add people from this point as well. So you can start your meeting first and then add people, and you can type in the email addresses and so on of whoever you want to join and select those, and they will then get an invitation in the email to join your meeting. Because there are links to the I suppose the real world conferencing here, it is possible to phone in. So if you do have someone who doesn't have data or who doesn't have an internet connection available, they can still phone in and get audio via phone. There is a South African phone number that they phone. So it's not international charges, but it's possibly not free either. Then the one on the right, and I saw Jaco sent a message a minute or so ago, allows you to chat and allows you to then have a text chat with your class. The reason that I like the text side of it is while you're busy talking or while other people are talking, you can have people, instead of putting up their hands, which of course you can't hear or can't perhaps see, you can have them writing a question that you can then address later. And so Yaku's question here is, do all people need a Google account? Will Office or iCloud be able to join? As far as I know, you don't need a Google account to join. But if you do have a Google account, it will sign you in and you'll be able to join. I did say in my invitation that I think, this is obviously focused at Google Schools. The principle of a video conference, Microsoft can do as well with Skype or with Teams, being their kind of group chat or their meeting platform. So you can achieve the same things if you are a Microsoft school. I just don't know how. So those are the two tabs up at the top there. To get rid of the sidebar, all you need to do is click on the main image again, and that sidebar disappears. So to show you then down at the bottom, we've got a meeting details option. If you created a Google Calendar event and you added attachments to that Google Calendar event, those attachments will show up here. So anyone would be able to get access to those during the course of the meeting, which is quite useful. But that is specifically if you're in the Google Calendar side of things. The details, the joining info and things are there as well. Then at the bottom in the middle here, there are three very important icons. The one, and all of yours, if you have a look, if you move your mouse to the bottom of your screens, or if you're on a device, it will appear slightly differently on your devices. The left-hand device will mute your microphone. And so now you couldn't hear me, but yeah. If you want to unmute your microphone, all you need to do is click on that, and your microphones would then be unmuted, and anything you said would be broadcast to the meeting. Please don't press the red phone button just at the moment. The red phone button will obviously disconnect you from the call, and will end your session. So if you want to say goodbye, by all means, that's what it does. And then the video camera icon will turn your camera on and off. So there, I've turned it off. Now all you'll see is my Google avatar, and that can help. It can be useful, especially if you're in a low bandwidth environment where you don't have a huge amount of internet speed perhaps, and things are starting to jitter and jump. Then turning your camera off can be useful. I said that I would explain why I think having a camera is useful. And it largely boils down to the idea of seeing the people who you're talking to and be able to engage with the people that are in front of you. So a lot of our communication, of course, is nonverbal. We use our eyes, we use our body language, we do a lot of communication that isn't necessarily asking and writing and typing. And so being able to see your pupils and being able to hopefully identify and see that moment that the penny drops, I think that's important. Very often we are a little bit self-conscious that we maybe don't look our best, or that the double chin is showing, or I don't know. We get all self-conscious about all sorts of things, and I think that if you can put that aside, I think being able to see the face of the person you're talking to is important. There is an option at the bottom as well for turning on captions. Now you can click on this button if you want. It will make your screen slightly smaller, but as I'm talking, you'll notice that the words that I'm saying are coming up as subtitles at the bottom. Move your mouse off the white bar if it's there. And yeah, you should then be able to at least follow along by reading if you're not able to hear. And while that could certainly be of use to pupils with disabilities, sometimes if you're just in a noisy environment and you just want to be sure of what's being said, turning those on can be really useful. As you can see, the transcription is not perfect. There are a few things that I've said there which Google has not translated very well, but it certainly gives a good baseline. And as long as you speak clearly, and I suppose in English, if you are speaking and teaching in Afrikaans, your mileage will vary considerably, I suppose. But that's something to bear in mind as well. The last button on the right-hand side there is the Present Now button. Don't press it, please, because if we're all trying to present at once, it will create a bit of an issue for Google. So being I'm just going to present now. You can see what's on my screen. That will just show you exactly what I'm looking at. So now some of you, it's flipping off to the side, and I've got that view there, and I get the view down the side. So this is what it would look like on your screens. I'll show you just now, I'll show you a view of something else, and you can see what it might look like for a pupil rather than this. So I'm going to just stop presenting there just for the time being. I will come back to that in a minute. The bottom right of your bar, there are 3 dots there, and one of them, in fact, let me just show you because there are a few variations here. So I'm sharing my screen again. Using that menu bar on the right-hand side, there are options there to do some of the things. So to turn on the captions we see there, going full screen just makes slightly bigger and fills all of your window. And there's an option to change the layout. Now, your layouts would have been changing dynamically because at the moment, they should be selected to that, auto option. You can choose how you want the people laid out on your screen as well, but using auto is probably a safe bet. As someone starts presenting, so your screen changes. As they stop presenting, so your screen changes again. So leaving it on auto is probably fine. But yeah, you can change the layout if you need to. The other thing that you can do, and be aware that the recording of the session, which is something I'm doing now, if you have a look in the top of my screen, it will also appear separately in the top of your screen. There is an option to record the session. Now, that is normally a feature that's enabled only for the premium kind of pay-as-you-go Google users. And on the free tier, even the free educational tier, recording doesn't normally appear there. However, during the COVID-19 pandemic, Google has allowed for the recording of sessions, and it's also allowed for us to have a lot more people in the session. So any single Google Hangout could have up to 250 people. Normally it's capped at 100, but for most of our classes and for most of our schools, 100 is probably more than enough. So there is the option to record. Once the session is finished, you then get that recording in your Google Drive, and you can then share it on your classroom or wherever it is that you need to. Be aware as well, because it is an opt-in feature for now, your site administrator, your Google administrator, will need to enable the recording. It is not there by default. So if you were to start a meet after we finish this and you go and look for the record now button, you won't see it until that gets enabled by your Google administrator. There are a few other things that you can do here. The settings option lets you just tweak with your microphone, your speakers, and so on. And if you need to change any of that, you can, but by and large, I've never really had to worry about any of that before. If you have multiple cameras and multiple microphones and things like that, then maybe some of that could be useful. But by and large, the browser will pick up your microphone, will pick up your camera, and you can just carry on regardless. So it's really easy to get going, I think. Or certainly it was easy for all of you. All of you are here and none of you have struggled. Okay, so the one thing that I did want to show you, I'm presenting, I do want to just switch the screen. I'm on a computer that has multiple monitors, and that is useful because I can keep an eye on my pupils, my class on the one side, and I can also share my screen with you on the other. So I said this wouldn't be a maths lesson in my email, but I'm sorry, there's some calculus. No, it's not, it's logs. Okay, so it is possible to share. I've got Google OneNote open, sorry, not Google, Microsoft OneNote, I beg your pardon. And I use this quite frequently with a graphics tablet, which I can write on, and where are we? Now I really ruined this because the graphics tablet is talking to a different screen, but that lets me write on this particular, or lets me write on here to as I would a whiteboard, I suppose. I appreciate that not everyone has a graphics tablet at hand, but there are certainly, you wouldn't necessarily have to be doing this. You could be showing them a PowerPoint presentation. You could be taking them through a set of notes. You could be doing a whole range of things. I've closed my notes. I don't even have those available. But you could be doing a whole lot of things that don't necessarily involve graphics tablets or anything fancy. If you do want to show a video or show a PowerPoint or something separately to your pupils, be aware that if you are operating on one monitor, you will lose your pupils in the background. They will be behind the window that you're busy working on. And so it becomes a little bit difficult to see what they're doing. And Ria has asked the perfect question: can we link our iPad screen to Google Meet? Absolutely. So load the app on your iPad. you can then join the session and effectively be joined from two places, your computer and your iPad and your phone, whatever it is that you need to do, which means that you can keep an eye on the class on your device and do your presentation on the screen. Those of you that teach from iPads, perhaps with apps like Explain Everything or Notify, or I mean, there are 100 different apps that you can use. So I use my graphics tablet on my computer. Maybe you are lucky enough to have an iPad pencil and you do your things that way. If that's the case, then you can also share your iPad screen as well. So as you're writing on your iPad, so you can use that to use that screen to share with your pupils. One thing that was pointed out to me by someone who was in one of my workshops yesterday is if you can get your phone and position that on a stand, you can actually then have your phone broadcasting just a piece of paper, and you can write on the paper underneath. And you get this effect of the graphics tablet on the screen and all the rest of it, but using obviously the much more familiar feel of pen and paper. So that's an option. We have to be resourceful, I suppose, in these times. And if you have a selfie stick or a tripod or something along those lines, maybe you've already got the equipment you need in order to set that up. The fancy word for those devices where you have a camera looking down at what you're doing is called a visualizer. Your school may even have one of those. And if you can attach one of those to a Google Meet, then you are golden. Then I think you are sorted. So there are a number of options in terms of the things that you can add to your Google Meet, the sort of type of material that you can use to display. And yeah, I think that the purposes of the session to touch base with your pupils, especially if you are trying remote distance education for the first time, pupils are generally, and students in general, are not big readers. And so if you can walk them through the instructions, touch base, say, how was it? Or what do we need to work on? Just those interactions, I think, are so useful and so important. Some of my hints and tips for being a good presenter would be things like direct your questions to specific people. When you've got a class of 20 odd or maybe even 30 odd people who've joined in, it becomes very difficult to isolate where the sound in the classroom comes from. We all know that a teacher can work out which person in the back row said something even if their eyes are closed and their back is turned. But it's not so apparent when you're on an online forum such as this. So ask direct questions, and if you can, encourage your pupils just to announce themselves, to say, it's Philip, I have a question, and then go ahead with it, just so that you are aware of who's speaking, and there is some sort of etiquette, I suppose is the word, just to maintain some sort of etiquette within the classroom. Recording the session, as I said, is useful, especially if you've got pupils who can't attend. Obviously, not everyone is in a position to access the internet, certainly not with video streaming. When we talk about cell phone data and things like that, maintaining a video call like this on a cell phone is not cheap. And so in order to try and make it as useful as possible for the pupils who perhaps can't join in, recording the sessions is very useful. Again, the recording is a temporary feature that Google has added during this corona pandemic. So it's there, use it while you can, I suppose. Hopefully, once we're back doing the normal day-to-day, we won't need to rely on it quite as much as perhaps we can. I would encourage your pupils to keep their cameras on, just so that we know and you can see who you're talking to. Again, I spoke about body language earlier on. It's so important to get that visual communication, not just hear the words and see the writing, but to actually I say see the understanding, because I think pupils don't always know the questions to ask, I suppose. And your teachers, you know this, and sometimes you can see before they can where their misunderstandings are, especially if you can watch their faces as they try and explain it to you. Headphones are a good idea, just in case you have lots of people around you. The headphones, I've got one in now, just to try and keep the noise to a minimum so that I can focus on the sound. It also means that my speakers aren't talking into my microphone, and you do run the risk of getting a bit of a feedback loop if that happens. So headphones prevent that and just make sure everything is a little bit easier to hear. And that you don't start getting spoken over by someone else who starts talking. The other tip is to maintain that side channel. Encourage your pupils to type their questions if they want to. Sometimes you'll say something and a kid will put up their hand, and we know the story. We'll say, hold that thought, I need to finish what I'm saying. They no longer need to hold that thought. They can type it in, it will get written down there. You can come back and refer to it later. And you can then say, okay, well, several people have asked this question, let's address that, or, obviously I need to go over this one more time. So that is it's a valuable addition that this brings, which the side channel, that text chat, which a traditional classroom perhaps doesn't have. There's one. Can you record the Meet on Android phone? I don't believe so. I think it has to be recorded on a PC, but I could be wrong. I'm not a big user of Meet on Android. I just haven't needed to. If you find out the answer, let me know, and I will make a note in my crib notes here. The other thing that I just wanted to say there was a good connection. I spoke about the internet connectivity. A good connection is important. Make sure you're in an area with strong Wi-Fi, and yeah, the last thing you want is for your face to start pixelating and your sound to drop and things like that. This is not a natural environment. We all know that, but we're trying to make it as good as we can, I suppose. And so the best possible Wi-Fi will result in the best possible conversation. So try and do that. If you have Wi-Fi at the bottom of your garden, you're in a better position than I am. That'll be pleasant to go and have a lesson outside. Then for your pupils in particular, a bigger screen is useful, especially if you're screen sharing and especially if you want them to read stuff that you're putting on the screen. So just bear that in mind when you recommend or when you talk to them about joining or things like that. Do recommend at least an iPad or perhaps a laptop or computer if they can get access to one. That will be better. And the other thing is, if you are going to present stuff on your screen, please make sure that you close any sensitive information. If you've got your test memos available, if you've got all sorts of other things there, close them so that you can't accidentally switch over to them. There are far worse examples of things that might go wrong, but if you can just be aware of that at least, and sanitize your computer desktop before you open it up to the world. Okay, those are, I suppose, my sort of top tips and hints and things like that. I would like to open this up to the floor, to you. Feel free to unmute your microphone, introduce yourselves, ask me a question if you have any questions to ask. And yeah, let's see if we can make a bit of a discussion out of this. Is anyone willing to start? Perhaps a question then from my side. I can pose the question of, what are your contingency plans? Should we not go back to school on April the 14th? How is your school addressing the issue? Marlies, to see all the people on the class, you've clicked on the chat option. If you go left to people, you should see the 17 of us listed there. And you can in fact click on a person you want to see, and that will bring their bring their picture to the fore. Otherwise, if you unpin the last one, you'll get the last couple of people that you were looking at. Anyone want to ask a question? Anyone want to participate? The recording, Jaco, as I said, is an opt-in. You have to enable your particular domain to be able to record before you can. And so you'll have to speak to your Google administrator to enable that for you. Once it is saved, once the recording's been done, you get sent an email with a link. It's saved in your Google Drive. So at the end of the process, you can get it from there, share it in your classroom, do what else you need to do with it. Tracy, you've unmuted your microphone. How can I help?
It's a small question. The graphics tablet,
yes,
is that the same as the drawing tablet, or do you get different software? Because we've got a tablet because we've got an art student in the house.
Okay.
Is it the same thing?
I think it is the same thing. Mine is a Wacom Intuos tablet. It's
okay.
WACOM. They cost, some of the newer ones, some of the ones are very fancy. This one cost about 1,500 Rand. So they're not the cheapest things in the world, but yeah, I use mine often. I suppose you've got to look at what sort of return on investment you're going to get out of it. But as I say, I've seen some very creative things with people holding their phones above, you know, what they're doing, and they've got a session happening on their phone while they're presenting on the PC as well. So there are all sorts of ways of getting around that don't involve actually spending any more than you've already spent. So yeah, just find ways to be creative, I suppose, and see what's there. And there are lots of good ideas on YouTube. If you ask people for their ideas, they come flooding back with answers. So yeah, lots of things can happen. Any other questions? Anything else that?
Hi, Philip.
Hi,
it's Jaco. I'd just like to know the recordings. So let's say, for example, I joined into your meeting like we've now done.
Yes.
Would I be able to get this recording even if you don't distribute it?
No. So the recording is mine, and it's then mine to distribute. The reason I suppose that it works that way is just to, at least as the meeting holder or the creator of the meeting, you have some sort of control over how that is distributed and how that gets sent out. One of the things that I've done on our Google domain at school is only enabled teachers to be able to record the sessions, for example, so that you know, if I'm having a bad hair day and things go absolutely pear-shaped, I don't necessarily want my video going viral. At least I then have that control of it. Whereas if a pupil were in charge, I don't know. I love my girls dearly, but yeah, just I don't know. That's the way that I choose to do it. It is possible to enable it so that you could record as well, that they could record their own sessions as well. But it's just, obviously we've got lots of people on here. This is this particular recording, as I warned in the email, is going out publicly, but the recording could be made available to others, and it's just about being sensitive to people's personal information and privacy, I suppose.
And then a second question, would you be able to edit the video after you've recorded it, or is it recorded as is? So let's say there's a kid that asked an awkward question and you want to just remove that part for public domain.
That's a really good question. I don't know the answer offhand. I know that it appears as a video file in your Google Drive, so I'm assuming that you could download that, or you could take it into YouTube's video editor, or you could, yeah, I imagine you could. I must say I've never tried. Maybe I'll cut this section of me blabbering on like an idiot out of the final video. But yeah, I assume it's possible. I just haven't tried it. Anything else? I don't have a huge amount more to share with you. I don't know if there are any questions about the technical aspects of what I've discussed that you want further details on, or yeah, I have done this. I have used this. Oh, Ken. We got a bit of feedback there. Sorry. Carry on. Ask your question.
Oh, no, I wanted to ask a question. It's Tracy.
Oh, Tracy, yes.
Just a quick, another question. If I'm then trying something and I need help, can I email you?
You can. I do have a day job. I can't promise that I can
So
respond.
I email lots of questions. And if you don't respond, it's fine.
If it's something simple, I'm happy to help. Yeah.
Okay.
It really is as simple as it looks. I mean, you've participated in the session, and if you can do this, then hosting your own is almost no more difficult. So yeah, I have confidence in you. What was I going to say? Oh, people are just thanking me. That's very kind of you all. Yeah, as I say, I wasn't expecting anyone to show up for this. I thought, well, let me offer, and let's see what happens. I hope it has been useful. I hope you've learned something. Oh, I was going to say, I have done a session. Those logarithmic notes that I was showing you on when I was sharing my screen, that was done as a real live Google Class session with my matrics. I did it the night before a test. I thought, well, if there's any drive to get them to join, the night before a test will probably be a draw card. But at the same time, it was revision work, so if they couldn't make it, it wasn't a huge detriment to them. So it was low stakes but high value was the goal, and we had a remarkably productive session. I was able to answer their questions. We had a few hiccups in terms of communication, and so that's where some of my hints and tips about how to structure the communication have come from. But apart from those, we got into a rhythm very quickly, and I think that you'll find that your classes will as well. You may worry about the disruptive elements, and the one thing that I've noticed is that the disruptive elements don't seem to join in the first place, which is a problem on its own, but it's less of a problem for you, and certainly you're then dealing with the pupils who want to be there. And those that don't, obviously, if you are able to record, if you can post that to your Google Classroom, they're not missing out. But certainly, maybe I have just wonderful children. I'm sure I do just have wonderful children in my class. But we had as I say, we had a very productive session. Marilyn, you're unmuted. Is there anything I can help you with?
It's actually Ken here with Marilyn. We're running on two computers. That's why we got the feedback.
Oh, that's fine.
Thanks. I joined a little late. Are there instructions for setting up one's own group in the YouTube video? That's also in your email.
So basically, to have other people join is as simple as either sending that link out. So you'd copy the URL when you start a chat, and you're welcome to try that. Start the chat and see. It'll say, copy the joining info, and you can then paste that in your Google Classroom, or you can send it via email or whatever it is. That link, you can do that the day before. I started this session actually yesterday, copied the link, closed it all down, emailed it out, and then we've all joined the session that I started yesterday. So it's just a case of getting the link and copying that and sending it on. You can reuse that same one. So if you have, for example, your maths class or whatever it is, your kids can just rejoin the same session if you are meeting them on a daily basis or something like that. So there are lots of different ways of getting them in. You can also add them by clicking on the people icon at the top of your screen. I think it's that side. And then there's a little button there to add people, and you can then type in their email addresses and so on if they don't have the link. So getting them into the session isn't difficult. It's, as hard as it was for you to join this one, it is for them to join yours.
Thanks.
Yeah, sure. Any other questions? There are one or two other unmuted microphones there. Teaching online is easy now. What about assessments? Michael, I do not have the answer for you on that question yet. But yeah, I didn't promise I'd solve all of your problems. I just thought I'd show you a solution to one. And Stephen, you've asked the question on any tips how to practice. You're welcome to start your own sessions. Start with colleagues, start with people in your department, perhaps invite them to a Google Meet, and have a discussion with them, and they'll be blown away at how simple it is to do it. I hope. So yeah, good. Well, if there's nothing else, I will then call it a day. Thank you so much for joining. As I say, I didn't expect even half of you to be here. So I feel as though I've achieved something. I hope you feel as though you've learned something, that I haven't wasted your time. The nice thing about this, of course, is that if I am wasting your time, you just close the window and carry on with your day. I don't have to worry about people getting up and walking out of my session. So that you've stayed, either you don't know where the close button is, or you've enjoyed it. So I hope it's the latter. But thank you very much, and I look forward to hearing of your success stories.